Hello, my name is Justin Clue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And today, we're going through the top 10 of 2019, the definitive list. You won't have to watch any other movies from this year.
Boy, Justin, I hate this annual episode, but here we are.
You know what? It's the one that gets the most clicks, Will.
That's right. Why don't I like this episode? I think some of it has to do with the fact that we're talking about movies that have come out over the course of a year, and so your memory gets a little foggy.
Oh, thank God for Letterboxd.
Thank God for Letterboxd. I don't like it because, so I guess I have a sort of ranked list. I don't think you do this year.
I don't.
Oftentimes, tradition has it be a ranked list, which is ridiculous.
It means nothing.
Is 7 better than 8? I don't think so. And another thing is, I shouldn't find it stressful. It's
not stressful.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. And yet, oftentimes what happens is, when you're making a list, there are like 3 to 7 slam dunks that you know are going to be on there, and then under that there could be 15 movies that are like, oh, what am I going to choose from these 15 movies?
Yes.
So that becomes difficult, and stuff gets left off.
Has anybody ever been like, how did you not include this movie on your list?
No, because nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares about my list.
So it's really funny to be like stressed out as you're filling this in.
I know, and I know that too. And then
if somebody was like, how did you not leave this movie? And it's like a movie that you know, I'd be like, man, this person sucks.
Right.
But if someone's like, how did you not leave this movie? It was a movie I didn't know. I'd be like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, I understand what you mean is I didn't make lists forever until we started doing this podcast. Because who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah. We have the same conversation every year, which is like, it's either people, they just want to show off. Like, look at all the good stuff I saw.
Yeah.
This is what is good.
But look, do you ever find yourself falling into that trap too? The performative trap?
No. Never.
Good for you.
Yeah. The only thing that I do like lists and wanting to is to share stuff with people, and not for it to be like, you let them know Justin showed you the way. Right. It's more like, oh yeah, check this out because it's great.
But then I also, so I enjoyed doing our top 10 of the decade list because it was a huge pool to choose from.
Yes.
And with this, another thing that sucks about end of year list is you often have, it's just the same movies on every list. Yeah. So it's like, oh boy, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. Yeah, foreshadowing.
I couldn't get my issue of Cage Cinema out to like look at what obscure, oh yeah, this Bruno Dumont film I haven't included.
And so then there becomes a part of you, or at least it becomes a part of me, that becomes like, okay, well, what obscure thing can I put on here? What can be the one that I recommend people check out?
Yeah.
And we'll find out, I guess.
Yep, we will.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get started. My list is not ranked, but what I will do is I'm going to go backwards and just talk about the movies as I listed them. Okay. So it was like, okay, I know this wants to be on my list, this on my list, and then there's like 5 more slots, and I'm like, I don't know. What else am I going to include?
So I'm going to say why I'm doing a ranked list. The reason I'm doing a ranked list is because I want it to crescendo. I want to build suspense.
Yes.
And that's the only reason.
That's the only reason.
Let's give it some structure.
Yeah. Listen, you need to reach that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood zenith at the beginning.
Right.
I don't know Will's list either. It's published. It's out there. Common knowledge.
Yeah, he doesn't care, though.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I know what Will likes.
I know what you like, too. I don't give a shit.
Maybe you could, well, you do care about my opinion, Will.
Well, I care about your opinion.
But you don't care about my 10.
I don't care what your number 9 is.
Am I going to say something that you've never seen? No, you know all these movies.
I think there's going to be one on there, at least one that you mentioned to me that I haven't seen.
Yes, that's true.
There are usually a few on your list I haven't seen.
This year is probably the most Hollywood heavy of all the years we've done it. Okay. And there's a bunch of movies I wrote down around the holiday season being like, gotta check these out. And this morning when I opened it up, I went, oh man, I didn't watch these movies.
Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
All right.
So why don't you start?
Yeah, so my first is Atlantic by Matty Diop. Did you see this one?
No, not yet.
It's great. It's on Netflix. I think it became like a Netflix original or something like that.
Okay.
So they picked it up. Matty Diop is an actor that appeared in a lot of Claire Denis films. And this is her first directorial feature-length effort. And the way that I want to sell it to people is it's a different take on I Walked with a Zombie. And that's all. That's what I'll leave it as. I don't want to talk about it too much. I've heard people like describe it, and they've either gotten it like weirdly wrong. Like people say it takes place in the near future, and it's like, no, not really. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it. And it is a movie that you'll be watching it, and for the first 40 minutes, you're like, what is this about? Yeah. Like you don't quite know that you have a sense of mood and a sense of a feeling, but you're trying to get like what that goal is, and it's abstract until suddenly it becomes clear what it is. So
I'm sold. That sounds great.
Yes. What do you got, Will?
Number 10, speaking of Claire Denis, I'm starting with High Life, which is...
Wait, is this a UK podcast of some sort? No. When did it come out again?
It came out, I think, in April here.
Okay, that makes sense.
It played at TIFF the year
that's
before.
why and it was on everyone's top 10 list that year because that's when they had seen it. So I'm glad you're bringing it out, yeah.
And it's a grueling experience. I'm actually wondering, like... You know what? I'm not going to wonder if I ranked it too low or too high because that way lies madness.
Yes,
that way lies madness.
Yep.
But it's a grueling experience, but one that has stuck with me ever since I've seen it. You know, the plot, roughly speaking, is a gang of prisoners are on this ship to the outer reaches of the galaxy, and they're forced to do these strange sexual experiments by this, let's call her a mad scientist, played by Juliette Binoche.
Yeah. Lover of the fuck box.
They live a life of degradation and humiliation and sexual violence, but out of it emerges life, and out of it emerges a father's love for his child. And, you know, in addition to being an extraordinary kind of sensual experience, a film of great oral and visual beauty, it's also a film about, you know, it sounds so stupid. I'm turning into the most banal point, but it is sort of a film about, you know, hope emerging in the worst of circumstances.
I saw this movie at TIFF and it didn't really do much for me, but I remember I saw it the first day of TIFF when you're all like excited, and I was like, well, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch something else.
Right.
So I feel like if I watched it again now, I would probably get more out of it in the comfort of my own home.
I might have a similar experience too, because when I saw it, the only time I've seen it, I was a bit overwhelmed by just how unpleasant it is.
Yes. Yeah. I want Robert Pattinson, who, I don't know if he's a good actor from Twilight and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, that sparkly vampire.
Yeah. I want him like saying yucks and catch lines. That's what he's known for, right?
That's right.
So I have a Robert Pattinson film on my list. It is The Lighthouse, Robert Eggers' film.
I caught up with that over the holidays.
Yeah, speaking of TIFF, I saw it was at TIFF as well the first day, and I just found it overwhelming an experience. Yeah. Just loud and big and very funny. I just laughed my ass off watching it.
I'm glad to hear that you laughed your ass off, because I have to say, when I saw it, I respected it more than I enjoyed it. I found it a really brutal experience.
I thought it was I thought it was hilarious the entire way through.
You know what? You're right, actually.
It literally ends with what seems like a parody of the ending of The Witch, where you get the big climactic moment, and then Robert Pattinson falls down some stairs, like Dwayne Johnson in The Rock falling down a hill.
Yeah, the second of Robert Pattinson's 2 bodily fluids films.
That's right.
2019.
I mean, everyone said this, as I will probably sing the refrain every movie that we talk about, but William Dafoe doing the sea captain from The Simpsons.
I thought that was funny. A unique insight I had, but apparently everyone has said it.
Yeah, I just thought that it's a movie that I thought a lot about watching it, and the way that it tells like a Lovecraftian story without being the horror film that you think it will be, when it is Lovecraft through and through. Tentacles, fucking sea life, it's all there. And I just thought it stuck with me, images of it. And because you said it was a brutal experience, I did not find it a brutal experience. It's something that I would return to, as opposed to something like Robert Eggers' The Witch, which, while I respected, is not something I'd be like, gotta watch it again, because I was like, I got it, yeah, moving on. Well, you know, I feel like The Lighthouse is a fun house I can visit again.
Okay.
Yes.
So, number 9, Parasite.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Not on my list.
Not on your list.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to talk about Parasite.
Yeah. It's great, though.
When I first started talking about the list to Will, I was like, there's some that are not going to be on it because everyone's going to talk about it. That's like the way that I approach.
Well, this is a bit...
Parasite should be like, it would be in my like top 3 probably, because like I saw it, I was very moved by it. I thought it was great. And yeah, that's it.
This is why I do find these, end of year lists a little boring, because Parasite's just like obviously one of the best.
Yeah, but maybe a listener's like, yes, I do like Parasite, which means I have good taste.
Okay, well, listen, folks, if you like Parasite, I think you're right.
Do you think it could win Best Picture at the Oscars? Because I think it could.
I think it's unlikely, but
because there's like no like
it's a consensus choice.
Yeah, it is. There's no big like front runner, if you know what I mean.
I don't think it will, just because typically if it wins Best Foreign Film,
Yes.
that becomes...
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, baby!
Yeah, or Amour is another example.
Oh, did that get nominated for foreign film? Yeah.
And that got nominated for Best Picture, too. And typically, if it's nominated for foreign film, they just decide that that's enough.
Yeah, because the voters, who are usually dum-dums, are like,
Yeah.
I already voted for Best Foreign Film. I'm not going to vote for it as well as Best Picture.
But the fact that they have preferential balloting for Best Picture now...
Oh, that's right.
Would maybe play in Parasite's favor.
Yeah, the spotlight of 2020. That Parasite is nothing like Spotlight,
No.
but it is like a consensus that like anyone watching that movie and going, this is terrible, like a woman that I met on the subway who thought the film was racist.
Oh, come on. Because of the Native American headgear in that
I don't
one scene?
I don't think that's what it was. I think she was using racism in an incorrect context, and she thought it was classist. Like, she thought that, like, the poor people were poorly portrayed or something like that.
Oh,
and
give
it's
me a
like,
break.
yeah, I don't think she was very rich. She kept talking about her and her people were going to go see movies, so obviously she was like a boss of some company.
She watched it and she was like, you can't trust the help.
That's probably what it was. It's like, my help is very respectable to me.
She said, we cannot let this happen.
Yes, we have to crush
Checking my basement right now. All right, what's your next one?
So my next one is Little Women, which I only saw yesterday. And I was like, I'm going to add it to the list. I'm sure you haven't seen it yet.
No, but I plan to.
Great movie. I have never seen, because I'm a man, any adaptation of Little Women ever.
Have not read the book, I see?
No, I have not read the book yet. Have you?
No, I hear the movie is a little difficult to follow.
It's not.
Okay.
I've seen, she very clearly uses visual cutting, and both storylines or time periods have different color palettes. One of them is very warm and one of them is very blue. It's not very hard to follow. I've never read the novel. I knew exactly every time period that we were in.
Okay.
I think that the cross-cutting is very smart. I think that it creates an emotional resonance that just reading summaries of what the novels were isn't there, that you can create meaning that is in the text but isn't like back to back with itself. And it's funny, it's fun. It's not like a radical reinvention or anything. It's not like, this ain't your dad's Little Women.
Yeah.
There is one I mean, a lot of people have mentioned it. There's a very dissonant note where near the end of the film, the father that they keep talking about comes in, and it's Bob Odenkirk, and he's like, Merry Christmas! And it's impossible not to feel like a Mr. Show sketch. But every actor is great in this movie. I just thought it was very moving, and I think it will become the definitive version of this text. Someone who has never read the book or seen any other version is saying this now. Right. Me! What do you got next, Will?
It'll displace the book itself, probably.
Yeah, throw it in a fire.
Number 8, I wanted to put a Bollywood movie on the list. Justin and I have been enjoying Bollywood a lot lately. So I rather arbitrarily picked one called, so I'm not going to be able to pronounce the title, but it's called Sai Ra Narasimha Reddy.
Yeah, that one's on my list too.
Okay, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, Saira, which we didn't even talk about at the end of an episode, did we?
We might not have.
Maybe. So Saira is the story of a rebellious figure against the British regime that supposedly is not written much about in the history books of India, but two white guys here, we don't know any better.
Yeah, and I truly do not at all trust any of the history depicted in this film because you know,
that's why it's good. That's why it's making the list.
This is not a big spoiler, but it actually ends with him being beheaded and his body still sword fighting after he's beheaded.
This is the kind of political propaganda I can get behind 100%.
Yeah, it's super fun, ridiculous.
Yeah, just big and cartoony in a way a lot of Indian action films are, but it's also because it's against like white oppressors. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, the politics don't seem too bad to me.
No,
yeah.
You mean they're brutally killing all of these colonialists that are in India? I'm fine with that.
Including the big bad who looks like Gavin McInnes.
He does look like Gavin McInnes, who is uncredited in the film.
They probably just picked him up at the bus station.
I looked and he was in like a couple of shorts.
Yeah.
And then this movie, which he has a big role in. And the sub-villain of the first part, because it's Bollywood, there's 2 parts with an intermission, looks exactly like Christian Bale.
And I would just like to encourage people to, dip into your Amazon Prime, check out your Netflix.
There's so many Indian movies on there.
Another one that
I know, I was hoping you were going to bring it up.
Justin recommended to me over the holidays was War with Hrithik Roshan, which is a really fun and funny action extravaganza, which it's sort of like Mission Impossible, Face Off,
yes, James
Bond, it's all
that
in
stuff.
there.
But with great action scenes.
Really great action scenes.
And like, I'm sure there's a sense of irony to it, but it's like irony like in the Fast and the Furious sense, where it's like, these guys are cool. Look how cool they are.
It's as homoerotic as any action movie since The Killer.
But also weirdly literal, because at one point a woman goes, I wish I could marry you, the lead star, and then the other guy goes, get in line.
Yeah, that was bold.
Yeah, that was bold. Yeah, that one is super fun. I showed it to my brother and his girlfriend during Christmas, and they had a blast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could put, like, I've been watching a bunch of Indian films, and there's some other ones that I could be like, oh, I don't know, would I put this one, like Sarah, War... there's some other ones.
What was that, Saho?
Yeah, Saho,
yeah.
which is like the ultimate version of Fast and the Furious. Love that movie. So good. That could have been made this list too. We saw that one together. So I guess I'll go next because we both said Sarah. I'm going to talk about Uncut Gems.
Okay, which is on my list too.
Yeah, probably a little bit higher.
It's number 3 on
number 3.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a lot about... this movie coming out, and I think that it delivered exactly what we hoped it would. Like, this was not the Safdies, it was not a swing and a miss. It's like just building on. You know what? I think all of their films have made my top 10 list since heaven knows what, since we've been doing this.
Mine too.
Yeah. What did you think of Uncut Gems?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was just an exhilarating experience. It's like going on a ride.
Does this open doors for Adam Sandler, as if he needs more doors open, or does it? Or like, I'd be curious if Adam Sandler's like, maybe I'll take more chances now.
I don't know. I think it's interesting that kind of everybody I know is seeing Uncut Gems.
And people are loving it, too.
People are loving. I mean, we've been hearing these reports of people in the Midwest or whatever, Adam Sandler fans going on Christmas Day, being confused and upset. By
oh, have they? I've not seen any of those. Like, look at these yokels news reporting.
But I do, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
But generally, I mean, at least in Toronto here, it seems like everybody I know is going to see it because it just seems like it's the right movie at the right time. Like, all the people who grew up with Adam Sandler are our age now.
Yeah.
And are ready for him in something like this.
And I mean, Sandler's always been kind of like threatening to do something like this. I mean, he has Punch Drunk Love, but now he's got this, and he can rest his laurels on it. Go back to Netflix, make a bunch of more movies with David Spade and Rob Schneider.
I mean, it's great to see him engaged, and it's also great to be reminded of how little a difference there is between Sandler's character in this
and Sandler in the other movies,
other films, because he's really not significantly less likable in this than he is in Big Daddy.
But I think the difference is that Big Daddy is like, look at this cool guy, and now he's got his redemption, while this movie's like, nope. Yeah, I mean, you gotta see it. We won't spoil it. Everybody listening to this has probably seen it, unless, you don't live in a big city. I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean, he's amazing in the movie because, like, he's going full Sandler, and his voice is so hard. He's talking almost nonstop through this movie, and it's really hard to take. The main reason why the film is bearable is because, like, you like Adam Sandler. He's the fun guy who you've known for years.
Well, that's the magic trick of the movie, right? Is that, like, anybody else, you'd be like, I hate this guy. Like, I just want to see his comeuppance. But because people bring that baggage of Adam Sandler, this salesman who's kind of a likable guy, you're like, I want to see him get out of this.
And in some ways, he's never been more abrasive than he is in this film.
He's never been more abrasive and pathetic.
There's a thin line between love and hate with Adam Sandler here.
Yeah, there is.
Or pain and pleasure, I mean.
Indivisible.
Yeah.
But the Safdies got it. And now they can finally move on to their dream project of 48 Hours, a remake.
Oh, which I actually heard collapsed.
Yeah, it did collapse. But Adam Sandler and who else could be in it?
Oh, God. Kevin Hart?
Yeah, sure, Kevin Hart or something like that.
I'd like to see them do something with Kevin Hart.
Oh, yeah, he gets a Safdie role.
Yeah, let's see that.
The little guys, they need to get the big breaks. What do you got, Will?
I'll go next, and this is one that I actually want to talk with you about because I have it here at number 7 on my list.
I know what it is.
You know
because I saw it and I was like, he's gonna put it on his list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because this is in many ways a very noxious film, but it's also a film that I had a great time watching.
What? I would have probably put it on my list Anyway, continue.
And I mean, it's the filmmaker is incredibly talented, and it's a movie that has refused to leave my mind ever since I've seen it. And it is S. Craig Zahler's Dragged Across Concrete.
S. Craig Zahler, who had appeared on my top 10 with Bone Tomahawk,
That's
I believe. I don't think Brawl in Cell Block 99 did.
Yeah.
So this is a movie, great performances, just great style. It's probably his first film that looks genuinely great. Like, it doesn't look cheap like his other two movies do.
And it definitely feels like kind of an evolution. Like, he's taking his style to the next level in this one. So it's about these two disgraced police officers who have been suspended for police brutality, played by your favorites and mine, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn. And, you know, these are
A
guys...
liberal and a Republican fighting it out, right? Oh, wait, no, I just
mean
looked at Vince Vaughn's.
a libertarian and a Republican.
That's right.
And these are two cops who are just a little bit tired of this PC society that we have around us, you know.
I mean, Don Johnson shows up to literally verbalize that, like, you know, the PC, it's getting bad.
But as Don Johnson also says to Mel Gibson, hey,
you went a little too far.
You used to be my partner. You didn't used to be like this.
Yes, that's right.
So Zoller, listen, we know what side Zoller's on, and yet he's enough of an artist to leave room for disagreement and ambiguity.
I mean, I wrote a review about this when it came out.
Yeah.
And I love S. Craig Zoller. I just love his fiction. His, like, he writes, like, Western novels, and he did some just detective fiction. Love Bone Tomahawk. Love Brawl in Cell Block 99. Love this movie.
Yeah.
But it's just so racist.
Yeah.
And it's people can argue that it's not, because the whole film, especially Dragged Across Concrete, is structured in a way where it's like, you know, we're following these racist cops. Whoop, gotcha. You're the racist viewer if you saw this movie was racist.
So I definitely think S. Craig Zoller's a racist.
Yes. It's cumulative. Like, I've read his book. I was sending Will, I was reading one of the books I've had on the shelf for a while.
Yeah.
And it's like every minority is described by their ethnicity except for white people who their names just appear.
And I don't want to make apologies for this, because there's a scene in Dragged Across Concrete that I think is really, like, bad and ugly.
Yeah.
And you know the one I'm talking about.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
So
yeah, people will know when they watch it, though.
I will just say that it's about these two cops because money isn't coming in. They're gonna hold up, basically.
Yeah.
And the hold up is being done by these two, you know, European super criminals and these two black guys that they've hired. And the noxious scene involves one black guy who has died.
Yes.
And that's the scene in particular that has been kind of like bothering me ever since I saw it.
Michael J. White, great in this film too.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the thing about Zoller. It's like he leaves enough
breadcrumbs.
Enough breadcrumbs. And I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's not a racist movie. But
Yes.
It's like it's not strictly a racist movie.
Yeah, like if it was, I mean, you'd have nothing to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And because they give you enough like rope to hang yourself. Essentially, it's just like I wrote a review. If people want to check it out on Letterboxd, where it's essentially like I've seen enough of his work that it's not like I could defend like Bone Tomahawk being like, oh yeah, but the Native Americans, they're portrayed as a whole different race. They're not indigenous people in the sense like he doesn't view them as monsters. There's even an indigenous tracker that appears and explains that they're different.
So here's a scene that's an example of why I find Zoller hard to dismiss, despite all of this. It's early on when Mel Gibson is at home with his wife.
Yeah.
And their daughter has, I guess, been hurt by some black kids on the way to school. And the wife says something like, I didn't used to think I was racist, but I've been living in this neighborhood for too long. And it's sort of the movie doesn't do anything with that. It just leaves it at that. Later on, of course, Vince Vaughn's wife, I guess, is mixed race.
Yes.
And you know, at the end, the black guy that Mel Gibson is dealing with at the end is sort of the most reasonable character in the movie.
Yes.
But that early scene with him and his wife is so ugly, and yet there's something so real and raw about it. These are the kind of conversations that happen. And it's incredible to see it actually depicted in a movie this way without any sort of adornment.
What I think is, you know, you could argue that, like, you know, maybe Zoller doesn't actually believe this. Like, maybe
he's engaged.
He's engaged, or like he's trolling with it. Like, he's like, I want to, you know, he's a big lover of that kind of like August Underground kind of stuff.
But even if that scene I just described is a troll, I think it's a valuable troll.
I understand, but it's just because it just, again, it's cumulative, right? Where it's like it's you can't not deal with it when I experience this in all of his work.
Yes.
And then when he does interviews, he's like, you know, I don't really want to make a political movie. It's just, it's like, come on, dude, that's exactly what you're doing. If he came out and was like, yeah, I want people to confront these things that are real and have to deal with them in this movie, that would be a more of a good faith argument that kind of like, you see the politics you want to see in the pictures that I make.
So everything I've seen of this guy, every interview I've read with him, I don't like the guy.
Yes. Will I see his next movie? Of course I will.
Yeah.
I love all the movies he made.
And I mean, again, not to dismiss all that stuff, because all that stuff's very real, but talking about the style of the film and how he has evolved as a stylist, this is a movie that it's 2.5 hours long, and it's very minimal for so much of it. It's like Takeshi Kitano. It's a film where there are these sudden bursts of humor and violence, along with long periods of kind of nothing.
Yeah.
Where you observe human behavior.
But I don't think it's ever boring, though.
Never boring.
It's never boring.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's almost such a control around the films that he's making. Yeah, I mean, he said his next picture is going to be a family film. So
Yeah, I'm interested.
yeah, I am too. Look, I mean, yeah, it's such a weird struggle, right? Because when I open the Fangoria, he writes an article in the
A column,
and I'm always interested because he talks about like underground films, oftentimes that I've never heard, like very passionately and stuff like that. So, why does he have to be so?
What's your next one?
My next one is Marriage Story.
Yes.
Netflix film, Noah Baumbach, the People's Director.
Oh yeah. Finally, giving people the stories that
The
reflect
white
them
middle
about
class.
MacArthur Genius Grant winners.
Yeah, that's right. Struggling with father figures. This is one that my emotional reaction to it is just because I think it reflects what I went through as a kid. I mean, the joke is that Adam Driver lives in a giant apartment in L.A. And while my father, when he divorced my mother, lived in a tiny apartment filled with ants.
Yeah. I don't necessarily hold it against this movie that it's kind of an upper class film.
Well, I mean, he's just reflecting his own kind of upbringing, I guess.
Yeah.
Or not his upbringing, his
life.
Yeah, what he went through.
Yeah.
And I think all the performances are all valid. I can agree that the film is slanted more toward Adam Driver after starting being about Scarlett Johansson, because Noah Baumbach's like, well, I want to tell my story.
Right.
Like, that's what I want to move towards. What's funny is that my dad and my stepmom watched it and they hated it because they were like, it's too real.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear that because I like this movie, and this isn't really complaining about the movie so much because the movie is the movie it is.
Yeah.
But something I miss in Noah Baumbach's movies is how kind of hard and ugly they used to be. Like in The Squid and the Whale, the Jeff Daniels character is a real bastard.
Yeah, I think that what's funny about A Marriage Story is a lot of people have been like, oh, this character's a piece of shit, or this character's a piece of shit, in kind of like they've still picked sides with the two people in the story, which is I didn't. Unfathomable. I mean, honestly, Scarlett Johansson is in the right. She's been following Adam Driver this whole time. How about Adam Driver give her like a chance to do what she wants to do, as opposed to just working at his whims. You got to bend a little bit, Driver.
Well, in Noah Baumbach's movies, the father character used to be a lot worse when it was actually just based on his father.
Dad. But now when it's based on him, he's kind of, he's a nice guy who can have some bursts of anger as well.
Yeah.
So what's your next one, Will?
Speaking of problematic directors, you probably know where I'm going with this one.
A Rainy Day in New York.
No.
I know exactly where you're going with this. Sorry, it took me a moment. I was like, huh?
I can hear you sighing and moaning already, but what can I say? I love this guy, but this movie does have one huge flaw in it. So the movie is, of course, Richard Jewell by Clint Eastwood. I agree with everyone who says that the Olivia Wilde character is a huge problem.
Yes.
But I think the Paul Walter Hauser character is incredible, and something I like about this movie. So I like Clint Eastwood's late period style, where it's so unadorned.
He's telling the story of the everyman. So
well, the thing is, he is telling the story of the everyman, and like this is a movie that opens with him, just kind of a loser guy who's working as a rent-a-cop, or no, he's working in wherever Sam Rockwell's law firm is. And he's going to go train to be a cop. He doesn't get to be a cop. Sam Rockwell says to him, now don't be an asshole. And then the next scene is him being an asshole. And
a real observe and report, if you will.
It is a real observe and report. He's just being an asshole at a college dorm. Then the next scene is him getting fired from that college dorm. It's just scene after scene of him being, kind of an idiot and a loser without any real comment.
Yeah.
And then finally, when he discovers the bomb, the one heroic act he's ever done, it's just another example of him wanting to be a hero. It's another example of him being like, we got to follow protocol because I'm a real cop.
Is this like the first Clint Eastwood movie in a long time which doesn't like paint a holy light around its everyday protagonist?
I wonder, I mean, the 1517 to Paris obviously likes its heroes, but
The Mule likes its heroes, and so does American Sniper like its hero.
Yeah, but I think this is the one, out of those.
Yeah, the one that's the most difficult was his protagonist.
Yeah, because
he's not a hunky man,
Well, I
so
mean,
you could treat him like a weirdo.
I wouldn't necessarily say those characters have halos around them.
No, but they're the good guys.
Yeah. But this guy, I mean, it's great that he cast Paul Walter Hauser instead of Jonah Hill, who was originally going to do it.
That would have not worked.
It wouldn't have worked because this guy really is this guy. Like, this guy, I mean, I don't know what he's like in real life, but this guy...
I mean, he's just a great actor, and you bring no baggage to the role.
Yeah, and he seems like a guy who shouldn't be starring in a movie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, actually, the whole cast is good. Even Olivia Wilde is good with the unplayable material she's been doing. So what's your next one?
My next one is, you may be shocked, it's Richard Jewell. No, it's not.
I was actually really happy for a sec.
Will's eyes widened.
I lit up. I was...
No, my next one is, you know what? I'm going to skip over this because I know it's going to come up on your list, and this one won't. Knives Out is on my list.
Yeah, so this is actually my number 11.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay.
I actually really like Knives Out.
Knives Out is great, and I think that when I saw it and I loved it, and I was thinking of like, well, I'm going to give it 5 stars. Should I? And I sat back and said, what is the best versions of these stories in cinematic form? And, people can talk about like, oh, well, Murder on the Orient Express or this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like it as much as Knives Out.
But, when you look at movies that have tried to do this sort of thing in recent years, Mordecai or
baggy and
or the
boring.
Kenneth Branagh Murders on the Orient Express, this is the only one to really get it right.
Yes, and to create, we could talk about Knives Out for a while, and like the idea that like the mystery doesn't actually matter for like half the movie because it's a transference of guilt, and it's a different film that the trailer and whatever sells it as, and that it's dealing with like cultural stuff around the protagonist that is revealed in the picture, and it's just neoliberal propaganda. Not a fan. Moving on.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously, the movie has the kind of the perfect tone. And, like it's serious about the things it's serious about, but it has the lightness.
When I saw the trailer, I was like, no thanks, like a big goofy murder mystery.
That's exactly my reaction too. Yeah. But I mean, Daniel Craig,
so fun.
Brings a lot to it, and when the mystery gets solved at the end, it's incredibly satisfying.
And it's not even one of those things where it's like, oh well, I guessed who the murderer was or whatever. It's also like it coming together and the way the puzzle pieces were like laid out that you're like, oh yeah, that's really smart and fun. And I'm actually invested in this. Like, I watched a bunch of Poirot films afterwards, and I'm like, these are fun, but they're also directed by like James Bond directors, so they're like 2 hours and change, and they're super baggy.
yeah. There's not a wasted minute in this movie, and I think Rian Johnson is just like the sort of guy who, he has an attention to detail.
What's your next one, Will?
So, I know this one's probably not going to be on your list, but it was made almost explicitly for me. It's Rolling Thunder Review by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, didn't even see it.
Bob Dylan documentary. I just had a great time.
That's all you need.
I mean, that's all. So
it's like 5 hours long, like all the Martin Scorsese documentaries, right?
I think it's probably 2.5.
I feel like Martin Scorsese, like, as a director of a documentary, I wonder what his actual job is. It's like someone shows him a cut, he's like, yeah, that's fine.
I wonder that too, because he wasn't involved in the interviews of this movie. I don't know if he shapes the material in some way.
I did a documentary on the, New York Times review of books. And it's like, yeah, sure you did, Marty. Wink.
That one had a co-director on it.
Yeah, it did.
But this one, I mean, what more do you want? It's got a ton of beautiful remastered footage of the Rolling Thunder Review tour that Bob Dylan did. It's got incredible behind-the-scenes footage. And
I like how you I don't know if this will make your list.
I said, I think my exact words were, I know it won't make your list.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm about to surprise you, Will, because now. So Bob Dylan fans, apply, because you'll love it.
And also, I assume Scorsese was the one who brought this, but the kooky structure that he does, bringing in fictional elements like a fictional German filmmaker who is supposedly chronicling the tour, or Michael Murphy appears as Tanner from Tanner 88.
Oh, really?
Just as an interviewee who's talking about, oh yeah, I saw the Rolling Thunder review. Sharon Stone is in the movie talking about how much she loved Gene Simmons and the influence that Gene Simmons had on Bob Dylan. Not true.
So, just a bunch of lies as well.
Yeah, a lot of lies, and it's fun.
Because it's for the fans.
Because it's for the fans.
The ones who will know, like, that's a joke, that is false.
It's for me.
Yeah, it's for you.
Yeah.
So, my next one is 20th Century, technically a cheat because it hasn't opened wide or anything like that.
It played in Toronto.
It did play in Toronto, probably just because it needs to play in Toronto to qualify for the Canadian Screen Awards. Otherwise, if it doesn't do that, then it can't be nominated. This is a film we saw at Midnight Man's. Did you end up seeing it?
No, I missed it during its 1 week, but I've seen 25 minutes of it.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because a friend of ours showed it to me.
And I liked it very much.
Yeah, it's great, and I think what's the best thing about it, if people don't know, it's a biography of Prime Minister...
William Lyon Mackenzie King.
No one's favorite Prime Minister, and that's what the whole movie's about, and I think the best part is that you see the trailers, you think, oh, it looks like a Guy Madden-esque kind of surreal farce, and it is, but the way that it kind of hones in on an emotional center really surprised me as I was watching it, because I was like, whoa, I actually care about what's happening by the end of this film, this like milquetoast definition of a neoliberal and how he gets to that point, even though that it involves narwhals and stuff like that.
And a good film about the Canadian identity.
Yes, it is, which is
whatever that is.
Polite and we're scared of everything else. So what's your next one, Will?
The Beach Bum by Harmony Korine.
Oh, what a great movie.
Which I think is probably his best movie yet. I mean, something that I love about this movie and Spring Breakers is the repulsion particularly attraction that he has for this sort of like Miami Beach culture.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just a great neon-drenched visual experience. And you've got Matthew McConaughey giving, I think, his best performance yet as Moondog, the itinerant, I guess, poet.
Yes, he is.
Who leaves a trail of...
Pulitzer Prize winning by the end of the movie.
That's right. Who leaves a trail of destruction in his wake and yet walks away a hero loved by all.
It's so good.
It's really funny. You know, it's a film. I mean, it's a film where Matthew McConaughey and Zac Efron knock out and rob a disabled man.
Yeah, they do. A tatted up, shirtless Zac Efron.
It's a film where Martin Lawrence loses his foot in a shark attack.
And it's played for laughs.
You know, it's a movie that... it's like it presents so many awful things and just lets you enjoy it.
But the best part about it is that the movie is essentially kind of another take on Joseph Kahn's Bodied, which is like this person gets everything at the end and they're the winner and they're the underdog, kind of.
And they're awful.
They're awful. They're an awful person. Yeah. And that's kind of what the whole movie's about.
Yeah.
I would even say that it's like one of Harmony Korine's like most well-structured film. It's so off the cuff, but the way that it's edited, it feels like it was written that way to like flow into everything that's happening, even though it's very episodic. Yeah, I love this movie too. All right, so my next one is, you know what? I know what your last one's going to be. How many do you have? You have 2 or 1 left?
I have 3 left.
You have 3 left?
Should I just say what my top 3 are and we can figure out?
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry. We already talked about Uncut Gems, so I have 2 after this.
All right, so...
And I think you know what they are.
Yeah, so tell me the one that's not the one that I know.
It's The Irishman.
The Irishman,
that's my number 1.
That's your number 1?
That's my number 1.
Respectable number 1.
But I've also seen it 3 times now.
You watched it 3 times?
I just watched it again with my parents over the holidays.
What'd your parents think?
They loved it.
Okay.
It really hits home for them now that they're in their 60s.
Yeah. They're like, are you going to leave us alone, Will?
The fact that...
Did the movie end and you turned to them and you were like, why?
The fact that De Niro's nurse doesn't know who Jimmy Hoffa is, that scene hit very strong.
Really?
Because as they were saying, they were like, yeah, you know, like all the people that we knew and were really important growing up, they're retired now. People don't know who they are, and why would they?
Yep.
You know? And they're seeing people they know retire and become like Robert De Niro.
And then they opened a present and it was like... their entrance letter to the home that you're sending them to.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, The Irishman, fantastic movie. Not on my list, again, because I was like, yeah, I know Will's going to put it on his list, so I can dodge that bullet.
Sure.
Because I needed to make a room for Avengement.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Is that your number 1?
Well, that's the first one I put on here.
Okay.
It's not my number 1. It's the first one I said, what would I want to put on a top 10 list? And that came to mind because I know nobody's going to put it. Actually, I saw it in a lot of top 10 lists of people that I respect.
The vulgar tourists.
No, just people that like action films.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Come on, man. This is Scott Adkins' joint, a revenge film.
And who is Scott Adkins for the people who don't know?
Scott Adkins is a martial artist. He started in DTV land. He worked in Hong Kong for a while, too, in late period Hong Kong action films. I don't know. He doesn't really have a claim to fame because I don't think that like just general audiences will recognize him by sight. But he starred in the Undisputed sequels, the DTV ones, and he was also in 2 Ninja films, which are probably his most high-profile films.
Ninja and Ninja 2 Shadow
of a Tear, yeah. And so Avengement is directed by Jesse V. Johnson, who's a stuntman, and I guess him and Scott Adkins kind of got together, and they've been making like almost 2 movies a year for a little while, and I was not a fan of them. I thought they were like sloppy and just kind of like action shot from multiple angles, which is not really my thing. You can't create flow that way. And Avengement is the opposite of that. Is it's tightly structured. The story, which is like doing kind of fun tricks about like, oh, you thought you saw this linear progression of time, you didn't. There's pieces that you missed. And Scott Adkins, as an actor, anytime he has to do just a straight American accent, he's pretty boring. Anytime he gets to do a different accent, or I believe it's close to his own in this movie, and he gets to be angry, charisma gold. And that's all he is in this movie, is angry as a man who is betrayed by his brother and sent to jail for like a decade, I think, and becomes a scarred monster, having to fight his way that entire time, and now he wants to take revenge on his brother. It's just like everything a DTV action movie should be. Great physical fights, just very tightly plotted, not a second wasted. I've watched it 2 or 3 times with different people, and it's just kind of blown everybody away when they've watched it. So
I haven't seen it yet, and it's top of my list now. I want to see it.
Highly recommended. All right, so our last one.
My number 2. Your
it's on my list. It's on your list. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What is there to say that we have not already about this movie?
I would just say that it's improved in my estimation since
Me too.
I've seen it. It's I remember that when we talked about it in the summer, I had some reservations. I feel like most of those reservations have kind of
you just want to hang out with these cool dudes, one of them who may have murdered his wife.
I definitely think that is still maybe for me the most difficult aspect of the movie. But
it's everything that you like.
Well, okay, but you know that not
fact, the problematic stuff.
But the thing is, the fact that he probably murdered his wife informs how I view the character after it comes after.
I agree as well.
It's like the fact that this guy, he's not a gunfighter who's going to live to shoot another day.
No,
eventually.
And he's not like. I mean, he's a cool guy, but he's also like, this is the end of his life based on the choices that he made.
And I think ever since I've seen it, I mean, when I first saw it, in the immediate aftermath of seeing it, I was kind of stunned by the ending of it.
I think I saw it 3 times in theaters, because I saw it.
You saw it the first night.
And then I went with somebody else the second night. Was it you? No. And then I saw it with another friend who never gets to go out to the movies, and he loved it too. And he's been kind of like, when Tarantino like Kill Bill and those other stuff, he was not a fan, and I showed him like Django, and he's like, oh, Tarantino doing this more like straight genre stuff, that he liked more.
Okay.
And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a variation of that, so he enjoyed it a lot, especially seeing it in 70 millimeter, which feels so novel because we were able to do that in Toronto.
It felt great to see it.
Yeah, that's probably why I saw it 3 times too. Is like, when am I going to see it like this ever again?
Yeah,
probably never.
I mean, I went to see Joker on 70 millimeter a few weeks later, which wasn't even shot digitally. But
that is not the bullet I will not take.
But you want to know something? I enjoyed watching Joker on 70 millimeter because even that. Like,
you know what? I saw Batman vs. Superman 70 millimeter. Did not enjoy it. So, yeah.
Well,
also shot digitally.
Sorry to hear that.
But so it rose in your estimation since you've seen it.
Well, I've been haunted by the ending of it because when I saw it originally, I had that initial reaction of, oh, is this, this is just the Inglourious Bastards ending. And I also thought, well, wait a minute, then why didn't... I fell into that trap of thinking, well, why didn't Sharon Tate have more dialogue through the whole movie?
Yeah.
What does this mean to my understanding of Sharon Tate's character from before? And I don't know, I've been haunted by the fact that Tarantino doesn't impose himself on Sharon Tate the way he does other historical figures. Like, he doesn't... I think when I first saw it, I kept thinking, why is she sort of like a manic pixie dream girl almost? Is he? But I think what I now see is he's giving her space, space to be.
Well, it's not her story. I mean, that would be the argument, is that there's elements that involve her, but Tarantino has almost no interest in doing or showing any complexities of her as a character, because I think that's too much, not too much to bite off for him in this movie.
But I also think he sort of respects that Sharon Tate is a real person, and that he is not going to turn her into a Tarantino character.
Now, the arguments I have against this movie. And on my other podcast, the Base Street Video, Mark Hansen hates this movie.
Interesting.
He hates it. And all of his reasons are fairly valid. The kind of like manic pixie dream girling of Sharon Tate. Mm-hmm. He also hates Tarantino, like late period Tarantino. Mm-hmm. So there's that ammunition there. And he would say stuff like, if you want to make a Western, why don't you make a Western? I was like, but he made 2 Westerns before this.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me.
He also didn't want to make a Western.
No.
That's not what this is.
Yeah, but he does get to do Western scenes, and they're great. So I can understand why people don't like it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all the stuff, again, I said this every time I talk about the movie, it's, like, made for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, it has all the stuff we like in it. Yeah.
Yes. And, watching it over, like, again, like, the way that when Cliff Booth kills one of the girls, and he kind of, like, he slams her head into the... So many times, it's like, oh, gross, like, I can't believe he's doing this. And he throws her away in disgust. Mm-hmm. Like, it could be a laugh moment, but it could also be like, oh... Like, Cliff Booth is not a good guy. Like, This is how he feels about this kind of stuff.
I think Tarantino leaves the room for ambiguity. And it's hard to tell, though, because Tarantino loves violence.
And Tarantino loves Cliff Booth as well. Like, he loves this character. And anytime that Tarantino's been kind of questioned about this, he reacts like a defensive little boy.
Yeah.
Which is problematic in that sense.
But I've also been haunted by the last couple shots of the movie where, like, the movie doesn't quite end on the note of catharsis that Inglourious Basterds ends on. It gives you the cathartic moment, that big rupture of tone, but then it ends on this kind of bittersweet melancholy note where it's like, he's like, okay, imagine if the old Hollywood and the new Hollywood merge. Imagine if Cliff Booth gets to be in a Roman Polanski movie, but it doesn't happen.
No, and that like last shot, which is like the pull-up, where you don't get to see Sharon Tate, is just like underlining that like, this is not real.
Yeah, this didn't happen. This could not happen.
Yeah. So...
which I think it's, I don't know, strikes such a I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it now. It strikes such a beautiful note at the end.
Yeah, us white guys, we can love Tarantino.
Yeah, I know.
Tarantino, man, he really gets us.
Just white boys who like Tarantino. Yeah, I think this is his best movie.
You know what? I would stand by that agreement. If someone said, you gotta watch one Tarantino movie, I'd be like, show me Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think that as far as a movie where people are like, nothing happens in it, I think that its pace is the best out of all Tarantino movies. Like, some of the other ones, Inglourious Basterds, like, some scenes just stop dead. And I'm like, all right.
And look, it's not Pulp Fiction.
No.
It's not Kill Bill.
No.
It's this.
Yes, that's right. I mean, we've talked about Kill Bill has only lowered in our estimation over time.
Kill Bill's fine, but I mean, come on, it's a doorway. It's not the destination.
That's right. Well, what do you think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is? It's almost like a summation as opposed to, Kill Bill being this is stuff I like.
I was quite concerned with Tarantino around the time of Hateful Eight because it felt to me like he was just leaning into all of his worst qualities. Like all that overwritten dialogue, the kind of, ugly provocation.
As Greg Zollering, if you will.
Yeah, the race stuff that was in Hateful Eight, and the fact that it was absurdly overlong. But this one, I don't know, it seems to me like he's genuinely pushing himself to new levels, trying, like he's hitting lyrical notes that he's never has before.
And we gotta say that Tarantino is now an old dad who seemingly spends his time just reviewing movies on the New Beverly website. Well, and it's great.
He had a great article about Soul Brothers of Kung Fu recently.
Agreeing with us that it's one of the best Bruceploitation movies.
So you know what? I like the guy. I'm in favor of him.
That's right. Quentin Tarantino should give us a call. We'll come up to LA, watch some movies with you. Yeah, that's right.
He's met so many people like us.
Do you think he has? I don't think
You're
he
right.
has.
You know why he hasn't? Because he's too cool. Because he goes out clubbing.
Yeah, but we have to be like, Tarantino, have you met guys who started their own Blu-ray label? I think not.
That's right.
So,
speaking of which,
that's 2019, though. I thought it was a good year for movies.
I thought it was a year like any other.
Yeah,
there were good movies. There were bad movies. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. When you say, like, it's a good year for movies, what you're really saying is it's a good year for English language films that were fairly accessible to me.
That's right.
All right. So, speaking of Blu-ray labels, big announcement of our Gold Ninja Video Important Cinema Club Bargain Bin Classics. What do we do, Will?
We have a brand new limited edition, special edition of the 1952 classic Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla.
That's right. Which I realized we only talked about its director, William Bodine, on a Patreon episode. Ooh. We didn't do a main one. So people may be like, what is this?
So Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla is the only feature film vehicle for Duke Mitchell and Sammy Petrillo, who were a Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis ripoff act. Jerry Lewis
still makes me laugh.
threatened legal action against this film. So this is the film that the late Jerry Lewis
Did not want you to see.
And of course it stars Bela Lugosi. His name is in the
very
title.
haggard Bela Lugosi.
Haggard, drug addicted, but giving it his all.
Ugh, so much of his all.
Bella's good in this movie.
He is good in this one.
Duke and Sammy, I mean...
They are good.
Sammy Petrillo does a good Jerry Lewis impression, if that's what you're in the market for.
Yes.
It's the story of two hoofer comedians who are stranded on a tropical island. One of them gets turned into a gorilla.
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi is a mad scientist. It's directed by William Bodine, who
directed 300 plus films, was known as One Shot Bodine.
For his propensity to only do one take.
William Bodine's like, I thought that was my name for the long takes I did, the opals-like tracking shots.
I mean, this is essential viewing, folks. And have we got a package for you? Because we have so many special features. We did a full-length audio commentary.
Which I've listened to because I had to do some editing, and I think it may be the best commentary we've ever done.
There's so much
There was so much to talk about while we recorded it, so...
Duke, Sammy, Bella, William Bodine.
Yeah.
Right there. You could write books about all those guys.
Yep. And if you did, we'd read them.
It's also got interviews with Bela Lugosi. It's got... a featurette that Justin and I recorded about Lugosi's late career. It's got liner notes. It has a bonus movie, Spooks Run Wild, which features Bella and the Bowery Boys.
Yes, and people know how much we love the Bowery Boys.
And best of all, we dug up and put on it Sammy Petrillo's prank phone call album from the 1960s.
Produced by Dick Randall, who did Pieces and Challenge of the Tiger and For Your Height Only.
This album is unavailable anywhere.
And I think the magic of this album is that it's just not a recording of it. It's when you listen to it on this disc, know that me and Will are in the room, sitting, listening to it as well.
Do you hear us laughing at any point?
Well, I mean, you were there. Do we laugh during this album?
I don't think so.
I mean, we get more into it in the introduction. And yeah, we record introductions for all these features as well. So it's not just like Spooks Run Wild. It's like, we'll talk about Spooks Run Wild before it plays, and then the feature plays.
So much good content there,
yes,
folks.
Pick it up before it's sold out. It's $10 at goldninjavideo.com. And pick up some of the other stuff that Gold Ninja Videos put out, like the Pearl Chang collection, which came out last month, which... I sold a lot of copies of, so if you want one, get it now because it's going to just run out.
Actually, folks, you really should get the Pearl Chang. You should get everything, but you should really get the Pearl Chang collection. Listen to our episode about her.
Yeah.
She is a discovery.
Yeah, so hopefully you can check that out, goldninjavideo.com. So what are we doing on our Patreon this week, Will?
We talked about Charlie Chaplin's final film, A Countess from Hong Kong, which is often regarded as like if you're talking about, what's the
most underrated Chaplin film.
It's like the archetype of the old out-of-touch director who makes one last out-of-touch movie.
What Quentin Tarantino keeps saying that he doesn't want to do.
That's what
he's thinking of Charlie Chaplin. Yeah.
Now, I love Charlie Chaplin. He's very important to me. I've seen A Countess from Hong Kong half a dozen times.
Yep.
So we're going to work through that.
Yeah. And so check that out. $5 a month. Patreon.com/TheImportantCinemaClub. And next week, we're finally doing it, Will. We're doing a subject that people have been wanting us to talk about forever. It is Martin Scorsese. But wait, there's a twist, isn't there?
We're not actually talking about any of his movies.
No, we are not.
Because listen, you know what we think about those movies.
Martin Scorsese is a director that I feel that, like, if someone wants to do, like, a greatest hits, we will have talked about every one of his movies at some point in time.
Because we've been trying to think, typically with those canonical directors, we try to do, like, okay, what's the bad movies? And we'll approach it that way. But with Martin Scorsese, I don't know, do you want to talk about Gangs of New York? It's not interesting.
I mean, it's not that bad.
It's not that, it's not that bad.
I actually think Gangs of New York would make a good Patreon episode, because that was also his passion project, and it also reflects an era of filmmaking when it came out. Like, if you watch it, it's very stylistically from that time.
Okay, so what if we did that as the Patreon episode next week?
You know what? Great idea. So we're going to do a Patreon episode of Gangs of New York, but on the main episode, we're going to talk about Martin Scorsese's cinephilia, because I think if there's any director who's known for that trait, it's good old Marty.
We're not entirely sure everything we're going to cover. We're going to talk about at least something that's an influence on him, and we're going to talk about work that he has helped restored, because he's with his Film Foundation and his World Cinema Project. probably more than any other living director, he has devoted his life to championing, restoring, and preserving films by people from all over the world. So we're going to talk about Michael Powell's Peeping Tom.
Yes, and I'm not sure what else we're going to talk about other than that, because I do think that Martin Scorsese's preservation work is much more important than people realize. Like, a lot of films that we treat as classics now would have probably disappeared if it wasn't for Martin Scorsese. Even just using Peeping Tom as an example. Oh, yeah. Like, it's Martin Scorsese saw it and he's like, oh, I believe that at the time he created a new release of it as well. Like, they struck new prints and actually went out after its disastrous early reception.
He's very much responsible for, like, the Powell and Pressburger canonization.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to talk about that. And I mean, Scorsese has done stuff like, is it like a journey through American cinema or journey through Italian cinema? There's stuff like that that also reflects him as a person, and like, what does it mean, the movies that he loves, and how does that kind of reflect on our reactions to him? Yeah. So excited to talk about that. Martin Scorsese, the Cinephile, and that'll be next week. So until then, I'm Justin Glue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. Do you still get angry, Will, or do you have a visceral reaction when you see a negative review for a film that you love?
Maybe occasionally. I mean, Twitter was invented so that takes that annoy you can be put into your timeline.
Yeah, because then that annoyance leads to response. And I've just been thinking about this a lot, especially on Letterboxd recently, when I've been seeing like a lot of movies that I don't love just like receiving like 1 or 1.5 star reviews. And it just made me think about, like, you know, when I first got on the internet, did I argue with people a lot? And I feel like, I don't know if I did, but I would have more of a visceral reaction of like, I need to give a response to this.
Yeah.
Which is, do you think that's something that you grow out of as you go along?
I definitely think I've grown out of it because, listen, the last year has been a bounty of takes that annoy me on the internet. Like, yes. all the stuff, the Martin Scorsese discourse over the last year. At times it's been awful, but you know what? You know what I realized?
You know what? I did block the word, I think Marvel, MCU, like Marvel, all that stuff, so.
I think Martin Scorsese, sometimes when I see people besmirching the honor of this man, I think, I remind myself, he's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's good,
and also, you know, healthy debate is good.
Yeah, but it's not healthy debate.
You're right. It's not healthy.
Because that's the argument that I have with myself is when I go to like respond to something, I'm like, well, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah,
like it's not somebody that I know and I respect his opinion.
Yeah.
It's some rando. So me replying to it will just, you know, the reaction will be that person being like, oh yeah, but actually,
and you validate.
I've won. Yeah, they've won. It's just because like something like Letterboxd, I guess maybe because I've been following more people, I see like a lot more like, you know, 1 star or half star, like I said. And like, it's weird that star rating will sometimes make me like, what? They gave it that? Yeah. And then I have to take a step back and be like, why do I care?
Sometimes it's disappointing, like when somebody you care about or who is your friend or your lover, like Justin DeClue here, doesn't like something.
Well,
you
I was going to say that I think that my friendship with Will, the thing that it has taught me the most is to go, you know what? I don't have to get angry because Will is a
provocateur.
Provocateur. There you go.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll see it and I'll be like, you know, when I first started following Will on social media and we started doing this podcast, I would respond to almost everything Will did, and that's not why Will. And you would get angry.
I gotta be like, why is Justin so mean to me?
Exactly. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't affect me. I know Will, so like I can't. You know, it would be different if me and Will, like, we disagreed about everything, then I'd be like, why am I hanging out with this person?
We actually seem to agree on most things.
We do
agree
actually
in front of a mic.
Yeah, but off mic, we're like, fuck you.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that is a healthy kind of attitude to have because, like, you know, the internet, especially like Twitter and all this stuff, what you're trying to do is you cement your own opinion to have a sense of identity because everybody has an opinion, right? So it's like, well, I'm going to get behind what I believe in and fight for it to the death because then I will be an individual as opposed to part of the mob or, you know, a variation of that, even though it's not really true.
Is that what I do?
No, I don't think so. I just think you want attention.
Of course I want attention.
Yeah.
I have 2 podcasts. Of course I want attention.
But that's what I mean, that it's fine, and it's something that I think that people shouldn't take personally, I do think that people oftentimes when they see, like, some people have replied to my Letterboxd reviews of like something that I didn't like really hurt, and I just want to be like, it's not like, you know, it's not a slight against you if you like it. Like, we don't have
yeah.
the same perspective.
I think you've got to love the sin or hate the sin.
That's right.